Good morning. How you guys doing today? Awesome. Great to see you. Now listen, most of us, I'm guessing almost everybody in here, you've been on a first date, right? You've been on a first date before in your life? I don't like first dates, to be honest. There's a lot of pressure, isn't there? There's something about a first date. Now I remember back in high school, I actually got a date with a college student. Now, I was a senior in high school. I went to go visit my brother who was in college, and I met someone there, and bumped into her, and then I asked her out, we went on a date. Now, for a girl, that's not a big deal, because girls get asked out by older men all the time. So if you're in high school dating a college person, you're like, yeah, not a big deal. But if you're a guy, you're like, yeah, all right, good job. You got a college girl you're dating. So I didn't really go on that many dates, to be honest, but the first time we went on the date, I was living in Massachusetts. I had to drive all the way to Worcester, Massachusetts. That's how you say that town, by the way, Worcester, just so you know, okay? It looks like Worcester, but it's not. Anyway, I had to drive there. It was about 30, 40 minutes, and I had this old car, Gran Torino. You guys remember Ford Gran Torino? Like that car right there? Yeah, it was old. That one looks a lot better than mine did, okay? I just want you to know. So I had this old car, and I got a flat tire on the way, and so I took my spare and changed it. That's the last thing you want to do when you're going on a date, because now you're getting dirty, your hands are dirty, right, everything, and so I do that, change it, I get there, and I pick her up, and we go downtown, and the plan was I'm going to get some dinner and a movie. So we drove into a parking structure that was right near both places where we were going to go, and as we get out of the car and I'm walking away from my car, I hear like, and I look, and water starts pouring out from underneath my car. I'm like, oh my goodness, the radiator, just decided to give up. And so I'm like, oh great. So we go, we eat, and we go to the movie, and this is all I can think about. So I come back with like a gallon of water, because I know I need to get some water in my radiator. So it's embarrassing, but I fill it up and I get her back, and don't worry, we'll get you home. And so I'm driving home, and we're like a couple blocks out from her house, and suddenly, kaboom, I get another flat. Like, you're kidding me, right? And I'm thinking, I can't, the spare is dead. So here I come, Doreen, can you help me push this car off the road on the first date, right? Like, how embarrassing is that? And so then, I lock it up, and I have to walk her the rest of the way, all the way to her house, and then I have to call my uncle to come pick me up. So there I am at her house waiting for like 40 minutes for my uncle to come get me. He takes me home. Next day I had to come get the car. It was so embarrassing. It was just like a disaster, right? And I hate it when things like that happen. That's just the thing. You're always dreading on a first date that it's just going to get worse, because you're trying to have the best first impression you can have, right? Everything's supposed to come off smoothly. Your car's supposed to look a lot better than it actually does. You're supposed to look better, talk better, all these things, and they just tend to be awkward. When I was on first dates, I'm really not sure what to do. Because the truth is, if you don't really know them very well, you don't know their personality at all, right? So you don't know what jokes to say. You don't know what they're going to get offended by or not. I'm worried about what I'm supposed to say. And you know what happens to me? It might happen to you too, is your stomach gets a little acidy because you're a little upset. You know what that means? Gas, right? Like that's the last thing you want on a date. That's what happens. Everybody been there? Anyone? Okay, I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but I've been there, and it's no fun. So why do we do it? Why do we do first dates, right? If there's so much problems, if there's this much trouble, is because they show that we desire, this date, the first date says that we desire to be with somebody, right? To be in a relationship. We have some type of relationship goal. And the majority of people, as we talked about in our series, will get married. In fact, 80% of people will get married by the time they are 40. So if you're in the audience, you're more than likely going to be married or have been. And what we're doing is we're trying to find Mr. or Mrs. Right. That's what we're trying to do. And we've got a lot of questions about finding Mr. and Mrs. Right. At least I did. How do we find them? Could be one of the questions, like, how do I find this person? And what should I be looking for in a mate? And how do I know after I've been dating them if they're the right one? Like, how do I know if I'm just settling? You ever think about that? Is this just me settling here? I don't know. How many of us have felt like we were equipped to date when we started dating? Because if you think back, all the way back to when you were young and your parents, or whoever it was your guardian, how well did they equip you for dating? Maybe you can remember some of the conversations like, make sure to use protection, right? It's like, okay, open the door for her, or like, buy her dinner, you be the one to pay. Maybe that's what you heard. Or don't date until you're 18 years old, right? It's like, how did that equip you and me for dating, right? And if some parents just want to survive the teen years, think about it, right? It's like, if they get out of our house without making any trouble, then we're doing pretty good, right? But if that's all we prepared them for? Did we really do a good job? Did we prepare our children for one of the most important decisions of their life? Because if you're going to get married, think about it, it's supposed to be a lifelong decision, right? And you want to make sure that this is a good decision that they make. There's not many lifelong decisions that we do. And so do make. So that's why I'm so cautious when it comes to who my girls will marry. I mean, I've been thinking about this from the day I held Charlotte in my arms. It was like, who's the guy that one day is going to hold her in his arms, right? Who is this guy going to be? And I do a lot of marital counseling. And I see a lot of problems that have happened with different people in different segments of their life. I've seen almost everything that you can see. And I realize that I'm not the one who's going to pick the mate for my daughters. I would like to, but it's not going to be me. That's going to be their decision. And so how am I going to help them choose wisely? It's one of the questions that many of us have on our minds. As parents, we want our kids to succeed in their relationships, to find that husband and wife, that perfect mate. But how do we do that? As a parent, you might not even know where to start. And if you're wondering that too, you're in good company, because most parents really don't. We don't, because we haven't been trained. So if you're single today, okay, or if you have children, then you're in the right place today. We're in our series, To Become One, how God makes the impossible possible. And it's about marriage. God took two people and He puts them together. But this marriage has to start someplace, doesn't it? How do we find that person? It has to begin at some point. How does God take these two individuals and bring them together? How do two become one? So the goal for today is both for singles and for parents out there, because some of us are parents and we want to know, how can we help? And today I'm going to give you some dating principles that's going to help you, and I'm also going to help you put together a dating plan. And so what I'm going to encourage you to do right now is actually pull out that outline that you have as you walk in the door, and that's that manila or that ivory they call it, right, paper, and pull that out, because you're going to fill in some of those blanks, and you're going to take some notes hopefully, and this is something you can take with you so that when you are considering dating or you're considering your kids, you're going to be able to refer to this later and it will help you out. And so we're going to look at this scene from the life of a guy named Abraham. Abraham is known as the father of the children of Israel, because to him came the first promises that God ever gave, and said, you're going to be the father of a great nation. And Abraham knew that if I'm going to be the father of a great nation, then that means there are going to be children that come after me, right? Naturally, there's going to be kids, and I need to do a good job of making sure they're doing the right thing, staying on track, so God can continue to bless us as a nation. And if this is going to happen with my son, and he has only one son, he better make sure it counts. And so he wants to make sure that he takes action. And so Abraham does. It's in your outline, but it's also up here on the screen. Now Abraham was old, advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in every way. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he owned, please place your hand under my thigh. And that was the way they would make a promise. And I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live, but you will go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. Abraham takes his oldest and most trusted servant, and he says, listen, I'm going to give you this charge to find a wife for my son, but you've got to do this. You can't take them from the people that are here. You've got to go back to where my people are from and find a wife for him there. And in doing this, Abraham had one purpose on his mind, and that was to get Isaac married. And that leads me to my first point that you'll be filling out right now, and that is the purpose of dating is marriage. The purpose of dating should always be marriage. And you can write this right next to it. You're trying to find the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. That's really the sole reason to date somebody. Is this the person that I'd like to spend or could spend the rest of my life with them? That's it. When God created, and we went over this because this is part of our series, that each day God created, the first day He declared it was good. It creates the space-time continuum. He says it's good. And the earth was without shape and was void. And then He creates and separates the waters. And He says in that first day it was good. Then He creates the living plants. He says it's good. And on and so forth. Every day He says it's good. But there's the first time that He says it's not good. And this is what He says when it's not good. Here, I'm going to put it first. And the Lord God said, it's not good that man should be alone. So all these things, He creates everything, but the man is alone. He says, I will make him a helper comparable to him. And then He brought Eve to Adam, and this is what He says. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This is the main verse for our whole series, that they're going to be joined together. In that moment, God instituted marriage. So this is marriage. The two people become one. So there's good news for you today, if you're single, that God desires for you to be in a relationship. And if you were wondering that, I just want you to know He does. And of course, you may say, well, the purpose of dating, it's obvious it's for marriage, right? As true as it sounds, there are some people that don't see it that way. Some people date just so that they might keep from being lonely, right? I really don't want to be lonely, and so that might be the case. Or they might keep from being bored. You probably met that person that just, if they're not dating somebody, they don't feel comfortable. And so they move from one to the other as they keep moving on, right? Or they might feel that it will bring some type of meaning to their life. If I'm alone, I don't seem to have the same meaning, so I want to date somebody so it brings meaning to my life. Or sometimes they just want to get the benefits without going all in. Okay, you know what that means. And so those who haven't embraced this idea yet, maybe that marriage is for, or dating is for marriage, you may find yourself moving on from one relationship to another. Because when it's not working out, then that one goes away and then you pick up with a new person or whatever, the next thing that comes along. Or sometimes what can happen is you can be in one of those perpetual dating relationships. And I bet everyone here, we all know them, we all maybe have friends or whatever that have been dating for like years. You know those people, and you're like, you've been dating for 8, 10 years. Are you guys ever going to get married, right? And they continue in this relationship. And the problem with that relationship is always a little bit off. There's always something missing. And the thing that is missing is what marriage brings to any relationship, and that is commitment. If you want to write that down, you can say commitment. You see, commitment brings security, it brings fulfillment, it brings belonging, and sometimes in those relationships that have gone on and on and on, one partner or the other is longing for that relationship to be joined in a commitment. They're leaving like magazines around with the pages open to the wedding ring section. Oh, did that flip over to there? Oh, I see that on the counter. You know, we're like dropping these little hints because they're trying to say, listen, we do want commitment. There will always feel like something is missing for those in those perpetual dating relationships. And that is because they're holding back something from someone else. Why is it that you can't commit fully to me is what we're wondering. The sole purpose of dating is to decide if you want to spend the rest of your life with someone else. And when we embrace this idea, the purpose of dating will become clear to each and every one of us, and we'll understand this, okay? This is the second thing I want you to know. Don't fall for the soulmate myth. Soulmate myth. Excuse me. Don't fall for the soulmate myth. And the soulmate myth is this idea that there is this one perfect person out there for you and me. And probably we got this a lot from the fairy tales that we watched when we were young, right? We were watching Disney, and there was this one amazing person that shows up. And in the Disney movies, you ever notice the couples never argue, right? It's always perfect, and they always end how? Happily ever after. And I don't know about you, but I always think at the end of the movie, they go, happily ever after. I'm like, what is the story that happens after happily ever after? Is that really true? How does this work out? That's what I'm wondering. You have never noticed that in some of the Disney movies that the princes don't even have a name? They don't. In Snow White, you do not know what the prince's name is. This guy's a stranger. In Cinderella, his name is Prince Charming. Now we know that's not his name. He doesn't show him go, I'm charming, right? It's like he calls himself Prince Charming, but he's not really Prince Charming. He's still a mystery. And also the Beauty and the Beast. All we know him as the Beast. We don't even know his first name. And I've always wondered, what happens after happily ever after? I think there should be a movie that's called The Day After Happily Ever After, right? And I think the opening scene should start with this two people preparing for their marriage. And she says to Prince Charming, or wherever his no name is, she says to him, honey, can you help me pick out some china? And he says to her, whatever you want, darling, just pick it out. No, but I want it to be our decision. I want what you want. We already know what's going on. Right? And the guy's like, really? Okay. And she says, well, look, here's what I've done. I picked out this catalog you see on this page. There are 3 different ones that I really like. And he looks at the catalog and says, oh man, I'll go check it out. There's a cool Star Wars one on this page. And she's like, no, I said the 3 on this page, not on that page. Okay, all right, okay. What do you think of this first one? Oh, that's really nice. You know, I like, you know, what do you like about it? She says, oh, I think I like the flowers. It's kind of pretty. Okay, what about the second one? Oh yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, but you said you like the first one. Well, I do like the first one. Well, why did you say the second one then? Okay, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know which one. Can you just tell me what the answer is, please? This is how it should open up. The movie should open up just like that, okay? That's how it should begin. Listen, there's no perfect name. There isn't a perfect name for anyone out there, and I'll prove it to you right now, okay? I'm going to prove it to you. I am not perfect. I know, you're all shocked to hear this, okay? There are things that I do on a daily basis that I get upset with myself for. I'm like, John, why did you just do that? And I'm like, really? I'm saying this to myself. And I'm like, how could you, I say this in my head, I don't know if you, how can you be so stupid? Like I'm saying to myself, I wish you hadn't done that. If I can't please myself, who on this planet is going to please me? And who on this planet is going to please you? By logic, we just can't find a person who is perfect for you and me. And there is a danger, by the way, to believing in the soulmate myth. That we believe that there's someone who's perfect out there. Because you will begin to believe that God has a perfect mate for you. And when you believe that, you're going to believe that one day God's going to bring them to you. And so what ends up happening is you're just sitting there either waiting perpetually for God to bring Prince Charming, who doesn't exist, into your life, right? Or you're going to be looking for those signs that God's going to bring somebody. God only told 2 people in the Bible, I just want you to know, only told 2 people who to marry. The first was Adam and Eve, okay? And there was no other person on the planet. God brought Eve to Adam, and this is for you, and there's nobody else, and that's never going to happen again, okay? So let's just forget that. And the only other person he said to was Hosea, and his book is in the Bible, and after this, tonight you can go home and just read the book of Hosea if you like. And he said, Hosea, I want you to go marry a prostitute. That's what he told him. Her name was Gomer. And he says, marry her. And this is going to be a picture of me as the husband and Israel, my bride. And she's going to cheat on you. And she's going to go with other people. She's going to have babies out of wedlock. And every time she does it, I want you to go back and get her and bring her back. And because that's my picture of how much I love my bride Israel. Now, it's a beautiful picture, a beautiful story. But who wants to be Hosea? Right? None of us. None of us. And so none of us want that. And you will tend to make a decision with your heart when you believe that it's the soulmate mate, that there's one perfect person out there. You're going to make a decision with your heart instead of your mind. And I'm going to tell you something. You always make a better decision with your mind than your heart. Because your heart can tell you what you like, but it can't tell you what's best for you. I see it all the time with my girls. You know what my girls want for dinner? Chocolate, pie, cookies, ice cream. Because that's what they're saying inside. I want this, I want that. You know what I have to do as a dad, a good dad? No. We are going to eat a healthy dinner. And then afterward, you can have some of that. Right? Because our hearts want what we like, not what's best for us. And when you believe in the soulmate mate, you're looking for God to make a decision that you actually have to make yourself. You see, God has given us the power to make that decision. God didn't tell you which car for you to buy, did he? God didn't tell you which house to live in. God said, I've equipped you with knowledge and wisdom to make wise decisions in your life. And it's the same thing. Somehow we suspend it when it comes to this person who's going to be our mate for life. We suspend all this logic and reason so for God to bring this perfect person. And that's not what God does. God is going to give you the right wisdom, and he equips you. And sometimes, yes, he does bring opportunity, okay? And that's happened in different areas of our life. Listen, I was dating someone. I'd been dating her for almost 2 years, and I was thinking about whether I needed to move forward or fish and cut bait, okay? Sorry for the terms. And I was unsure if I wanted to marry her, and I went away on a trip, and I had read a book that this guy in the book had prayed to God about his mate, and he said, God, if she makes me a pie, then I'll know it's for and I don't tell her to, then I'll know she's for me, and she made him a pie, and whatever, it worked out. So I'm away on the trip, and I knew she was going to pick me up at the airport, and I said, God, I'm going to try this, right? And I'm like, God, if I come back, and when I meet her, and she says, I made you a pie, a peach pie, then I'll know she's for me. I fly in, come in, I get off the airport, she's waiting for me, we're talking, she says, you know what? I was just thinking about cooking lately, and so I started cooking, and I made you a pie. It was an apple pie. And I'm like, what do I do about this? And I'm like, well, it wasn't a peach pie, so I didn't marry her. It's a true story. This is a true story, I'm not lying to you. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I looking for God to give me a decision on something I pretty much already knew, right? I pretty much already knew it. I'm thinking, Satan to get in there or whatever it is, or to overlook red flags because God told me that I should have married this person. If you're looking for God to make a decision, you'll ignore red flags that are in your relationship because you say, well, I think it's God's told me to do this. Why don't you just use your wisdom and make a wise decision instead? The sooner you realize that who you marry is your choice, it will free you. It will free you. And when you realize, okay, I'm free to make this choice, you'll also begin to say to yourself, well, how do I make a good choice? Because that's the most important thing. There are many compatible people out there, but you want to find the best one. So how do we do this? We're going to move a little bit forward in the story of Abraham. Look what he does. Coming up here on the screen. I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live, but you will go to my country and my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. Go ahead, continue. Suppose the woman, he responds, his servant, suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land where you came from? Then Abraham said to him, beware that you do not take my son back there. So he says, if the woman will come, should I bring him there? He says, don't do that. The Lord God, the God of heaven, took me from my father's house and from my land of my birth, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give you this land. He will send his angels before you, and you will take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow me, then you will be free from this my oath. Only do not take my son back there. Abraham's like saying to his servant, listen, there's some conditions here about who and what you're looking for. And I don't want you to break these conditions. And this leads me to the next point, and that is this. Make a list and check it twice. Make a list and check it twice. It's kind of like the Santa principle, if you will, of dating. You see, Abraham made this list of requirements. He said, don't take away from among the people of this land, the Canaanites. Don't do that. That's number one. Number two, she must be from my own family. So go back to where I'm from and find this woman. And don't take him out of this land. If she doesn't want to come back, don't bring him over there. She must be willing to come to Isaac. Abraham recognized that there were some priorities that cannot be compromised. You see, if he compromised these areas, then God wasn't going to be able to bring the promises and bring the fulfillment of what he really had and the blessings that he had for Abraham, his children, including Isaac. So many people have gotten derailed by poor choices because they compromised in different areas of their life. Their education or their career maybe was never achieved because they didn't see eye to eye on that and never straightened that out beforehand. Or maybe the family that they had envisioned was not realized. I counseled a woman once and she said, well, I married a man, he said he didn't want to have kids, but I thought I would change his mind. And then she was in her 40s now, she said, the years have gone by and I really wished I had a family. And she missed out because she compromised on an area that she really wanted and thought was important and somehow thought it would work out. The marriage sometimes gets infiltrated by addiction and abuse because we compromise our principle in certain areas and we overlook it because of the sake of love instead of saying, is this a wise choice for the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? And they made a lifelong decision that kept them from where God could have taken them. When I helped to plant a church almost 20 years ago in Miami, the first worship leader was our senior pastor. I'm not that gifted. You don't see me up here strumming a guitar and singing, but he could. And after a while, we found somebody to replace him. And this guy was super talented. I mean, he knew music inside and out. He would strum his own guitar. He didn't have any backup, but he could sing like crazy. And he was really awesome. Andy, you're amazing too. Wherever you are, Andy, I don't want to downplay that. But this guy was incredibly gifted. You could see that he could do this for his career. And there was only one problem, though. As we looked in and we said, hey, we want to bring you on. We want to help start developing you. He couldn't do it because his wife didn't want him to be in full-time ministry. And because he had never had that conversation with her, he never really figured out where they were together, it turned out that he was unable to go where maybe God could have been leading him. It's so important for us to keep updating our list because our lists change this over time. My list changed. When I was growing up, I didn't want to marry a Christian. I've told you this story before, but it bears repeating because it's so important for you and me. But the Bible tells us this. It says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? And he's trying to say, listen, if you yoke yourself to someone who's an unbeliever, doesn't believe like you believe, then there's going to be a lot of problem. And that's not just marriage. Sometimes that's with business deals and a lot of other things. But he's saying be very careful about that, but it especially applies to marriage. But I didn't think it applied to me for a long time. Until one day I realized that this is an area that I really want to have unison in. And I remember as a waiter, another waitress thought I was cute. She was older than me. She said, oh, I have a niece. I really love to set you up. She's so sweet. And I'm like, okay, I know what sweet means. You know, it's like, why are you trying to set me up with this woman? But I said to her, listen, I said, is she a Christian? And she goes, no. And I said, well, I'm sorry that I'm really not interested in dating her. And she says, that is so narrow-minded of you. And I'm like, well, you haven't even met her. And I'm like, well, yeah, but here's the deal. I'm a Christian. I'm following God, and I don't want this to be an area of strife in my life. If I want to tithe and give money to the church, I want to be in unison. We both want to do it. If I want to bring my kids to church every day, every Sunday, and put them in church, then I don't want an argument there. I don't want to be going to church by myself. I don't want to be getting involved in other things by myself. And so I realized I need this person to be a Christian just like me. And so maybe this should be if you're a Christian, it should be on the top of your list. This is what Abraham was saying. Make sure that they believe like us. Don't take them from this land of foreign people. Take them from my family so that there is unison, so that they will be equally yoked. Your list should have things that are negotiable and non-negotiable. There are some things that you're just not going to compromise. I'm sorry if it doesn't work out. Listen, you'll know right away. It will help you when you're looking at people to just move forward. Say, listen, you got some of the things that I like, but I honestly, let's not even start there because you're going to lead me down a path. I don't want to get closer to you. Let's just move forward. And there are some things that can be negotiable, maybe that you prefer. And so you want to decide on personality. Do they want kids? Are they good looking? By the way, pick somebody that's attractive to you. Just, you don't have to missionary date, or that you're somehow emotionally or physically. There's many different ways to be attracted. But that's what you want. You're looking for that, right? But you want to see some other things. What's going on in their life? Maybe some of the things that they try to hide, whether they're drinking a lot of alcohol. Maybe there's some drug use, or there's other things in their life that are red flags. You want to be seeing those, comparing them to your list constantly. A list will help you avoid picking the wrong person. There are two proverbs I'm going to show you right now that are in the Bible. And they are in there because they apply perfectly to marriage. Listen to this. As charcoal is to burning coals, and wood to fire, right? It's going to start a fire. If you put that charcoal, those burning coals there, so is a contentious man to kindle strife. So, do you want the contentious man? No. Right? Listen to this one. Sorry, ladies. It's better to dwell in the corner of a housetop. I don't know, what does it look like to dwell in the corner of a rooftop? I picture a guy in an attic all curled up in a ball, than in a house shared with a contentious woman. And the Proverbs are trying to give us wisdom. It's like there are some things that we should be watching for so that we don't end up as one of these Proverbs. Stick to your list. It will help guide you in life. Listen, I'm just going to delve into this a little bit, but your stance on sex should be on this list too. And I don't have time to get into it too much, but God created it to be the most intimate act that two people will ever share on the planet. And He has reserved that for marriage. Listen to last week's message that we did. It was called To Become One. It was named after the series, but I dove into it there. But sex often causes so much confusion in a relationship because we've overcommitted ourselves spiritually and emotionally to a person, and then we don't know how to back out. It causes confusion in that relationship. When I was doing premarital counseling, someone came into my office. This couple came in. And it was kind of a little bit messed up. He was like 25, she was 18, and he had already had a kid or two, but I could tell that they had already entered into a sexual relationship, and she was kind of confused. And so it was hour-long session goes by. It was so long, and I get to the end, and I finally, the last moment, it's so interesting when you're in counseling, sometimes you have to ask people direct questions, and I find out that he had just cheated on her a month before, and they want to get married like in 2 months. And I looked at them and I said, all right, not only do I'm not going to do this marriage, okay? I'm not going to officiate it, but I'm going to recommend that you don't get married. There's no way you guys in 2 months can work this out. If in all possible that you should decide to get married, it should be at least a year from now, because you need to bring some healing and understanding what's going on. But the problem was she was so confused she couldn't see this clearly. And the truth is, I believe that she did end up marrying him. And it's like, why do you want to enter into this? Because they entered too soon and felt too close together emotionally and spiritually, and she didn't know how to back out of those feelings. When we plan to buy something, don't we make a list? When you buy a house, right, you're comparing things. When you're buying a TV, we're looking for the best deal for your money. We buy cars, we're looking through all these things. We need to do the same thing when it comes to our spouses so that we make a good choice. It will always help you make a better decision. Now, parents, I want to talk to you for just a moment. This kind of idea can start as early as 5 or 6 years old. You can just begin having a conversation because they're already watching movies where there's two people that are like, they're watching Disney movies. They see Snow White, they see Prince Charming, they know that this is a possible future for them. You can begin having a conversation and encouraging them to write, who's the kind of guy you'd like to be married to, or who's the kind of woman you'd like to be married to. And help them put stuff down on their list. And they're going to put some stuff down on that list that you don't need to change right away. Okay? They're going to put some stuff and you're like, okay, we're going to work on that one. But just don't go, oh my God, that shouldn't be there. Let them do it. Because if you want to continue the conversation, it has to be a conversation. And begin to take them, I mentioned this earlier, but begin to take those children on dates. Take them out for breakfast. Take them out to dinner. Model what it means to be in a relationship. And continue to work on that list, and it will begin to evolve over time as they grow and you grow. Now this is another principle I'd like you to know, and that is make time your friend. Make time your friend. It's going to come up on the screen in a second. There you go. Make time your friend. I was sitting in my office, this is probably 10 years ago, and I get a phone call. I was the guy that they do what was called pastoral care. So anytime there's a marriage counseling, they would call me. So a premarital counseling guy calls up and he says, hey, Pastor John, how you doing? And I'm like, what's your name? He's like, and I think we met once before. Yeah, you know me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, good. How you doing? Good. Well, I don't know. I've been dating someone. I want to get married. What's the process? I'm like, okay, well, we're going to fill out an application and stuff. He's like, well, how soon can we do it? And I said, well, usually we do like 3 sessions, and I like to put a week between each session on premarital counseling because I want them to do homework and I want them to think about it. So I'm like, well, it usually takes about 3 weeks, and from the first time we meet, he says, well, she's out of the country, and we have this window when she gets back. I'm starting to think military or something. So, okay, she wants to get married, so can we do it? We have a very short period of time. Can we do it through Skype? Or do you remember Skype or FaceTime? And I'm like, well, I usually don't do premarital counseling through Skype. No, I don't think that's going to work. I said, why can't we do it when she gets here? Well, she's not going to have much time when she gets here. And I said, so when you meet with her, she's going to come visit you again soon? He's like, well, I've never really met her in person. I've only Skyped her. I'm like, I'm sorry, did you say that again? I'm on the phone. Like, I've only ever Skyped her. She's like, she lives in Puerto Rico or one of these islands. And I said, let me get this straight. Okay, you're telling me you want to get married, and you've never met this person in person? No. We've been going on for like 3 or 4 months now, talking all the time. I'm like, listen, sir, you've only ever seen this much of her. You don't even know what she looks like completely. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm sorry. Honestly, we can't do this. You do not know her. There's no way you can spend enough time with a person to know them enough to say, I want to spend the rest of my life with them. And I got to be honest, I don't usually tell people what to do, but I'm going to tell you, don't do this. Don't do this. Please take some time and get to know this person in person. So we hung up the phone, and through my friend, he knew my other friend, a guy on staff, and I found out he did get married to her, and 6 months later, they ended up getting divorced. It's a true story. You see, sometimes that might be an extreme. I'm like, yeah, I've known this guy, this girl, I've known her for 3 months now. Okay. 3 months still, think about this, 3 months in comparison to your life, how much time is that really? Right? Because what happens when we first go on a date with somebody? We got our best foot forward, don't we? I mean, the guy's brushed his teeth, he's put on deodorant, he's probably wearing the best shirt he owns in his closet, and you're like, wow, look at this guy. And then she's got her nice dress on, she's done her hair, she may have even got her nails done that day, and you're like, wow, she's really pretty. And you're trying not to say anything bad about your life, right? You're trying to say everything good, you're smiling, you're laughing at their jokes even when they're not funny, and you're like, and everybody thinks you get along, because we got our best foot forward, and that shield doesn't come down, listen, probably for months, because we're still trying to win that heart. And you need to take some time. You need to find out who this person is. You need to see some of these red flags that will pop up as you spend time with them. There are people that want to get married so quickly. But the problem is you can't possibly know somebody in a short period of time to know them that quickly. Could it work out? Maybe. But is it the wise thing to do? Because the odds are against you. Let me give you some statistics about marriage, okay? Marriages in their teens are twice as likely to end in divorce compared to those in their 20s. Right? When do they start dating? Toward the end of the teens. They can't have spent much time together, even had experience with meeting other people. And so they're twice as likely to get divorced as someone who's had a little more experience and been in their 20s. Divorce in marriages ages 20 to 22, when you get married at 20 to 22 years old, is twice as high as getting married compared to 24 or 25-year-olds. And so the optimal age, by the way, to get married is about 26 if you're looking for that time period. And the optimal age for dating is a minimum of 2 years, statistically. And those people experience higher marital satisfaction if you spent the time to get to know that person and said, yeah, this is the person for me. I've met a lot of people that have come into the counseling room, sat in front of me, and they say these words. We got married in 3 months. I'm like, wow, why so quick? Because God told us to get married. I never told them that I didn't believe them, but I had a hard time believing them. Because if He did, why are you sitting in front of me right now? Right? This should have worked out. This should have been the right thing. Listen to what God says. Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Nobody wants to be in poverty in the emotional area and spiritual area of our life, do we? In the relationship area. No, this applies to us relationally. We want to be in prosperity when it comes to our relationships, and He's saying good planning and hard work. Don't take shortcuts, and we need to do that with our relationship. Here's one more thing I want to tell you about, and that's this. Make a dating plan. Make a dating plan. And some of you may go, what is that? And how do you do it, right? Well, listen, Abraham's servant had a plan. Here's what I want you to do. He determined to stick to that plan even if he had to return empty-handed. That's what he said. Go, and if it doesn't work out, then come back empty-handed. But stick to the plan that I've given you. And then you'll see or find a wife for Isaac. I disliked blind dates. Now, I don't know why, but a lot of people wanted to set me up on blind dates. And so I would have these blind dates, never meet them, and then you go out, and they're just so even worse than first dates. They're incredibly awkward. So I came up with a strategy for blind dates. So if there are any of these single people out here, you might want to write this down. Here was my strategy. I would agree to go on a date for 1 hour. Yeah. And what I would do is I would tell them I had an appointment, like, okay, I'm going to do this on this night, but then I have to be somewhere 1 hour later. And so the way it would work is I'd go on that date, and if it wasn't going well, I'd be like, oh, sorry, I gotta go. Yeah, sorry, hey, it was nice meeting you. Bye, and I would take off. Now, if it was working out, I would go, hold on 1 minute, let me just call my friend. I'd leave, call my friend, come back. Hey, everything's good, we can hang out for another couple hours. Okay? It gives you an out, right? If it's not working out. That strategy saved my life. I'm at a party, I'm in my 20s, I'm like 23, I'm really young. And I'm hanging out, talking with my friends, someone invited me to the party, I didn't know a lot of people, but I only knew a few of them. We're chatting, we're talking, having a great time, and then I leave, and my friend calls me, and he says, hey John, there was this woman at the party that really liked you, and she asked me for your number, so I gave it to her. I'm like, great, thanks. So she calls me up, and I don't know this woman at all. And she says, can we go on a date? I said, okay, sure. All right, I'll go on a date again. And it was in Boston, so I employed my strategy. And so I go to the date, I'm in Cambridge, and she starts talking to me, and she's like, well, I'm 40 years old, and all my friends, they've been divorced, and they have like these young guys that they hang out with, and I just thought maybe you and I could like date and go out. And I'm like, you want to make me your boy toy? Hey, hour's up, lady, gotta go. And she's like, no, please stay. And I'm like, get away from me. I'm like pushing up my leg. And it saved my life, okay? It's just telling you, dating plans and strategies work. Have a plan. Listen, dating will move faster than you will expect. It will. Because emotions get involved and it's kind of exciting at times. Stuff happens. You have to have a plan. So here it is. I'm going to give it to you. Step 1, group date. The first thing you want to do is group date. Okay? The best way to start a relationship is to get to know someone where they can be themselves. But there's not a lot of pressure on you like the first date or the blind date. A casual environment where there's no commitment, where you can both feel comfortable with yourself, and then you begin to see with the pressure off who the person really is. Because they're not all focused just on you and the other person. Because you're talking with other people, you're hanging out with others. And then you will see who maybe they really are. A great way to do that is an attendant environment where someone else can be who already is. We do growth groups, or small groups. We just ended them. They're going to start again here in the next month. And find out what they're joining. Join it, right? You don't have to tell them that you're joining it for them. And they just show up every week. They're hey, how you doing? And you don't even know them, right? In an environment where there's no pressure, where they don't have to feel like, okay, I blew it, or that they owe you anything, or anything like that. Listen, we do outreach events sometimes. Come to an outreach event. And the 4th of July, we're going to be doing red, white, and blue. We're going to have a we're going to have a tent. Sign up to be there, hang out, serve with them, see what they're like when they deal with other people. Or even come here to church and serve together, hang out with them, get to know them a little bit better. There might be other environments you can do that too. But take some time to get to know somebody where there's no pressure. And parents, by the way, this has to start early. It's got to really start in middle school. We're thinking middle school, that's way too soon. No, the grades are. When we come from a Hispanic area in Miami, and they won't let their kids date without chaperones or anything. This is not going to happen. And sometimes parents, we want to be overly protected. Listen, you want them to start getting into environments where they can be around people of the opposite sex. Not for that purpose, but to get to know them and get comfortable with it. That means if there are dates or social functions, dances, let them go. Let them be there because it's a protected environment where this kind of idea is moving around a little bit. Not that they're dating someone, but that they can be there and they can kind of begin to understand these things. Your kids are much more likely to get married than play sports. Did you know that? Sometimes we make sports more of a priority than some of these other events. And let me give you a couple more stats. 0.8% of high school students play any level of professional sports. 2% of high school students get sports scholarships. Only 2%. But 83% of women and 77% of men are going to get married. Where should we be training our kids? Sometimes we let life take over instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to be a parent right now, and I'm going to train you so that you can be ready to begin dating. It's more important for them to learn healthy relationships than it is for them to kick a ball into a soccer net. The next thing is, step 2, double date. Double date. Especially for those of you who are trying to get to know that person. You don't have to make it an awkward, we're on our own. Go out with somebody else. My wife and I, we did a lot of double dating because we were part of a singles group, and I would to ask friends, and we would go on double date. We do it in an environment where we can really get to know each other a little bit better to see, are you really who the person is that I see up front? And so you go out in safe environments at friends' house or family parties, and you get to know each other as friends. Now parents, this should start around the age of 16, when they're like a sophomore year, or maybe even a little bit earlier. And this can be the most stressful time for you as a parent, right? Because your little one is growing up and you're wondering what's going to happen. But if they are in environments where they're with other people, you can be kind of secure in the fact that nothing bad can happen to them. Trust the friends that they're with or bring them over. One of the best things that you can do is when your daughter says, I got this guy that I'm interested, or your son says, there's a girl that I'm interested, have a barbecue at your house and invite them over. That's the first thing they're ever going to do. There's a couple things that they need to do, I think, as a parent. One, have a curfew anytime that happens. You give them a curfew and they have to stick with it. The second thing is meet the date. Your daughter doesn't want you to know the boy she's going to be dating, more than likely. She's going to try to hide that. And the girl, the same thing. The girl's going to try to hide, the boy's going to try to hide the girl. No, you can't date them unless I meet them. We're having a barbecue, have them over. And then Dad, don't have the 9mm sitting on the coffee table when he shows up. I know you want to. Try not to have that there, okay? Because you're just going to make him nervous. He's not going to tell you anything, right? But sit down with him. Take a few moments to sit alone and give him some expectations. Get to know him, but also give him some expectations of what you expect from him if he's going to date your daughter, or her if she's going to date your son. Right? Now, what you expect from him. So invite them over. And then 3, talk with your teen after a date. Now, if you're a single parent, it's you. If there's two parents, they may gravitate one toward the other. You don't both have to talk to them, but one of them. Talk to them. When they get home from the date, don't just let them go to their room and do more social media. Talk with them. Spend time asking what's going on. How did it go? Tell me some things that were going on. Start a habit of getting involved with your kids in that conversation, and it begins now. If it starts now, it's going to be more natural when it goes into the dating period. And the last thing is single dating. And at this point, you want to be dating because you believe, by the way, if you're single, that this person is a candidate for marriage. At this stage, it's a safe time to say, you know what, I believe this is going forward. It doesn't mean they always make it to marriage, but you should be at least saying, if I think there's red flags, then don't be married, don't be dating them yet. If you say, this is the person I believe I can marry, then that would be a good time. And parents, before your children leave the house, before they're 18, they need to go on a date all by themselves, without a chaperone, with no one else. And if you've gone through this process, you've kind of prepared them to the point where they can go on a date by themselves. Because what you don't want to do, parents, is have them go off to college, leave your house, move out, and the first date they have on their own is without you being able to help them or download or have trained them for that moment. And it's a scary thing when someone comes to your house and they say, I'm going to take your daughter out tonight, right? But you want that to happen, at least in an environment where you can be there for them, where you can help them, where they can download, where they can go, this happened, this was weird, tell me, what can I do? Or you can talk to them or give them advice or anything like that, but you want to be there to help set them up for the future. See, none of us have never had that, did we? Maybe none of us did. So maybe somebody did, and I'm going to say maybe you were blessed. You're probably 1% of the people. My poor grandmother would have loved to do it. She just happened to pass away before that time. And I started living with my uncle. And at that point, I don't know if they felt like they could tell me or not tell me. And when I started dating, I had no clue what to do. And in fact, because of my background, because my parents kind of left, and there was no parent, I didn't really have a view of what marriage was, or even a view of any marriage. I thought that marriages had to be perfect. And if you had parents who stayed together, you know they're not. And that was brought some reality in your mind. I didn't have that reality, and I thought that person had to be perfect. In fact, I expected the perfect mate. That's where I was at. And I was searching for the perfect mate. And so as I went through life, there I am looking around, and I idealized marriage. I actually got married a little bit later in life because I never asked somebody to finally marry me until my wife broke me down. Listen, the picture that I had for a person would have been unmatched by anybody. Nobody could have met that. But God, over time, began to work in my heart. And I began to understand these principles more. And I started looking for a list. And I started looking, okay, who could be this person? And I started realizing what I'm looking for is not the perfect person, but the person that I could say I could spend the rest of my life with. My whole view began to change. And I'll be honest, when I got married, I still remember standing at the altar wondering, am I making the right decision? I'll be honest, I wasn't sure, I wasn't positive that she was the best wife on the planet. I wasn't. But I am today. I am today because I trusted God and did what He asked me to do. I drive home and I think, I am the luckiest man in the world. And this is the best time of my life. And some of you might be single and you're thinking, man, I want that life too. How do I get it? I just laid out how you can do it. An outline for how you can find that person in your life. When you do it God's way and put this into practice, you will make a wise choice for yourself. For some of you parents, you might be saying, my kids are almost grown, I'm not sure how to speak into their life. Listen, you can still be a good example to them. Someone just asked me this yesterday, and I say this because it's true. My parents abandoned me when I was 6 years old. Didn't talk to them for over 30 years. In all that time, no matter what they did, this is just something that happens with parents and kids. It's not logical. But at any moment, I would have welcomed a conversation with them because they were my parents, and I can't explain it. And no matter where you are with your relationship with your children, you might be thinking, well, we're far, we're distant. I can guarantee you, somewhere deep down inside, you're like, yeah, I would welcome a conversation with my parent. It's never too late for that to happen to you. So I want you to know you can still move into that area of your life. Isaac, he was 40 years old, by the way, when he married Rebecca. 40 years old. That's how long it took him to find the mate, right? But Abraham stuck to his list and did what God told him to do. And it's then they found the right person. God revealed and was able to reveal the right person because they had done what was right in their life to set up for this moment. Check it out, what he says when he finds them. He gets to this place, he sees this woman, his servant Eliezer, and then a scripture verse that's going to come up. Or we'll just read it out of our programs. The man bowed down his head and he worshipped the Lord after he found this woman. And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his mercy, his truth toward my master. As for me, being on the way, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brethren." He found Rebekah, he found the wife, and brought her back to Isaac. God led him to the place where he needed to be. And that's what God wants to do for us and for you today. Let's pray. God, I know for some of us who might be thinking, is this message wasn't even for me. God, the truth is that that message was for every one of us because, God, what we need to realize in our lives is that the best thing to do is always do it your way. God, if we could humble ourselves and remove our expectations, Lord, and sometimes remove those things that we think are best, just like my kids think chocolate is best for dinner, and trust the Father in heaven, then He'll bring the things that are best for us, the things that are healthy for us, and that will make us most happy. So now help us to do that. Help us to realize if we're single today, that it's a choice that we make. And God, we want to make the wisest, the best choice. Lord, lead us in a path. Lord, I believe that you can open up doors of opportunity for everyone. But in the end, every opportunity becomes our choice. And so, God, help us to recognize when you open that door. When there's a person who's in front of us that we could say, I could spend the rest of my life with them. And Lord, also awaken our eyes over the wrong person. Because sometimes, God, we have to make the hard decision and say, I need to wait for something better. God, do that in the life of everybody here today. And Lord, as we all say in attitude of prayer, I just want to say to those people out here, the best step you can ever do is move toward God. When I said that I got to a point where I only wanted to date a Christian, it was because God was number one in my life. And just like marriage, God uses that illustration to represent Him and His people all the time. Because God is looking for what's most important in that marriage, and that is commitment. God is desiring that you and I commit to Him. And maybe you said, well, I've known you, God. I kind of like you, God. I believe you're a good God. But maybe you've never committed to Him. What does that look like to commit to Him? God committed to you when He came, lived on this earth in the form of Jesus Christ, and died on a cross. He gave everything. Talk about commitment for you because He loved you. He says, now, you commit to me. When you commit to me and receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all that sin, and I'm going to take it on myself. So that when I look at you, I see that pure person of Jesus Christ, that pure bride that I've been desiring. And that's what commitment is. You say, God, I throw away my sin, and I embrace you as my Savior. And if you want to do that today, I just want to lead you in a prayer that will help you do that. And so I'm just going to ask everybody to pray this, and if it's you, pray from your heart right now. Lord God, I open my heart. I invite you inside to be my God, my Savior, and my friend. Forgive me of my sins. Wash me clean. I decided today to follow you, Jesus. From this day forward, I'm yours. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, let's clap for that.